Cacao family, hello brothers and sisters. My name is Fran from Cape Cacao. I'm very excited today. I'm talking to Robin from Tuqtuquilal, who are some of our cacao partners in the Mayan lands in Guatemala. So let's get Robin on here. We're going to be talking all things cacao today, including a little bit of her personal journey and what happens at Tuqtuquilal. And I have some beautiful cacao here from Tuqtuquilal. Anybody in South Africa, we have this on our web shop, so you are welcome to join me and Robin with some cacao. There she is.
Hello.
Hello, sister. Welcome to this live.
Hello. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. So I've lit a candle over here and I have some cacao from Tuqtuquilal, and I know you've also got yours ready. So let's just take a moment to open up the space and to call in the spirit of the conversation. So welcome to everybody who's joining live, everybody who's getting the recording of this. Just take a moment to connect into the breath, to connect into the heart space. Breathe deeper into the body. Maybe just have a smile come onto the face. A smile go into the heart. And just drop a moment of gratitude, connection to Mother Earth as we give thanks. To the heart of the sky and to the heart of the earth and to our own hearts. We meet here in the center, and we meet here with the spirit of this conversation, with the spirit of cacao. Malti Dios. Thank you. And so this isn't the first time that we are having Robin on to chat with us. And sure, it's not the first time that Robin and I are chatting outside of the online space. It's just very, very cool to always have you. So, sister, thank you so much for taking the time. I know it's pretty early there and you've got the whole day ahead of you still. Also very cool how we are speaking today in the start of a new Trecena, the Trecena of air, and a beautiful day of the path. So I'm going to hand over to you just to introduce yourself and your journey in Guatemala, how you came to be there, how you came to be working with cacao, and how you specifically came to be at Tuqtuquilal. Hello? What's happening here? We might be having a little bit of internet issues.
Sorry, I'm back.
Hey.
I think my internet cut out for a moment.
This is what happens when you live in the jungle. Are you back there?
Okay. I'm back now. Hi, apologies.
All good, all good. Was just wanting you to do a little introduction on yourself, your journey into cacao, and your journey in Guatemala up until the point of being at Tuqtuquilal.
Beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you. Apologies about the internet issues, but yeah, living in Guatemala in the jungle. Yeah, I'm so fortunate now. I've spent about 10 years here in Guatemala. My journey sort of started wanting to find environmental projects and wanting to travel and learn about Latin America. I learned Spanish a little over 10 years ago, and I've been working with different NGOs and different projects here around mostly rural Guatemala over the last 10 years. And just totally fallen in love with the culture and the way of living and the nature and really everything. So much about Guatemala. I'm so grateful to have chosen this as my home. And so I've been now at Tuqtuquilal for almost 2 years, a little over a year and a half. I found out about this project through friends of friends over several years ago, a little bit before the pandemic, and came here to visit because we have some cabins and we're by this beautiful natural river, bridge, pools, and here in the jungle, and it's really a beautiful site. So I came here to Tuqtuquilal to visit several years ago and just absolutely fell in love with the project, fell in love with what they're doing with regenerative agriculture. And I, at the time, was deciding to start a little business of my own to help support all the artisans that I found here in Guatemala. I've gotten to know so many different artists and yeah, I've gotten to know so many different artists in around Guatemala, and I really wanted to find a way to support them. So I started a little online store to be able to sell different artisanal goods that I found, and I had a friend that does beautiful leather work, another friend that does beautiful jewelry, and then I thought of this project in Tuqtuquilal as to be able to sell some of their products, as they were doing like turmeric, and they had just started working with cacao. So I was like, oh, okay, well, I don't know much about cacao, but I'll try it out. Like, let me see how it sells. Like, I'm happy to support the project. And it turns out that right at that time, I was going through some personal health issues. So I had to stop drinking coffee, and I was changing my diet, and then I didn't really know much about cacao at the time, and so I was like, oh, well, maybe I'll try this cacao. It sounds like people are using it instead of coffee. Okay, let me try cacao. Let's see. I'll have some chocolate in the morning, and it really just changed. Everything from there really changed. I started drinking cacao like almost daily. And I just felt better, like the anxious nervousness that coffee would give me, where I would get that stopped, and cacao really just totally opened me up, opened my heart, helped me go through this journey that I've been trying to go through to like heal myself and my emotions, and really just fully opened myself. And then it turns out I was planning to actually leave Guatemala and start to do that full time, selling cacao and selling other products. When the founder, a friend of mine, Matt, the founder of Tuqtuquilal, he was like, well, before you go back to the States, you should really come to connect directly with the community, come learn more about cacao, come learn about where it comes from, the process, get to know the people and the community around the project, and get to know more about cacao. And I was like, actually, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, I'll do that. That really feels good to me. I'm going to go connect with cacao, where it comes from, learn more about it. And it totally pulled me in. It turned out like the cacao was calling me to her here in Tuqtuquilal, and I felt like, wow, okay, like this is where I need to be. And I just totally loved being part of the project. And so, kind of short story, but here I am now.
Awesome.
short, long story. But yeah, that's kind of how cacao called me to her, really.
Yeah,
Yeah,
beautiful. Yeah, she works in mysterious ways. Thank you. So, do
yeah.
you have 100% of your effort going into the managing and the operations at Tuqtuquilal, or are you still connected with any of the space in the US?
I am. I pretty much, once I came to the project, I was like, I'm going to go full force into this project. It needed all the energy since the beginning. So yeah, I've kind of put all my efforts here. And no, I'd still would love to connect one day. I think starting to open up the store, but honestly, we have so many great clients that are able to sell our cacao. I don't really need to be one of them.
Yeah,
So
yeah, true that, true that. And it was just so wonderful when I visited earlier this year, and I happened to go with to visit some of the farming community, well, the members of the community, some of the farmers, and we took a little trip, and then also just being around the actual farm and regenerative center, Tuqtuquilal itself. I was quite amazed at how the fluidness of the working day happened. Very different to how we navigate things in the West. And I know that there's also many languages, many Mayan languages. Obviously, post-Columbian times now, Spanish is largely spoken. And I know you speak Spanish. You were very, very kind to translate a lot of the Spanish to English for me because I don't speak Spanish, which was also interesting traveling around Guatemala and not knowing a word of Spanish. So my next question is actually, how is this navigated in the community? Does everybody speak Spanish, for example? And when they don't, how does it work? And then also just how does it affect the operational day-to-day process at Tuqtuquilal?
Yeah. Um, no, Guatemala is a multi-diverse, multi-linguistic country, and where there's actually over 23 languages spoken in Guatemala. And where we are in this region, the Mayan Quechua language is spoken. So, they're actually all different languages. There's a few like main branches that they come from, but like, so there's some that are connected linguistically, but they're all actually like, they're different languages. And here we're fortunate enough to be in the middle of the Quechua territory, the middle of the Quechua region, and it is very much spoken here where we are in Lanquin, which is so beautiful because I have lived in other places around Guatemala, and it's very much spoken as well. It's usually it's still the first language spoken and taught to the children. And then it's when they go to school, to primary schools, when they usually start to learn Spanish. And so for most of the people like my age, that's kind of how they've learned Spanish as well. But now it's starting to change a little bit. But yeah, anyway, so where we are here in this region, the Quechua region, is it's spoken in many different places, but here it's still very much spoken. It's pretty much the only language spoken actually in a lot of the villages. So here in Lanquin, we're sort of in the main town, but there's like 60 or 80 different villages around us, and most of the villages, they only speak Quechua. So a lot of times, maybe some of the older men or the children speak a bit of Spanish, and then there's like a lot of the women actually understand, but don't always choose to speak Spanish. So it's an interesting mix where we are, and it's really such a jewel that we are in this region where from grandmother to mother to child is still spoken like their native language first. And that's so special. So that's something that we really want to appreciate. But as far as like working, from Spanish to Quechua is creates like challenges, but we see them as like beautiful challenges. So luckily we've been able to work with like all of our team here, except for like one person that we work with speaks Spanish. So we're able to communicate for the most part, but a lot of the times in meetings or in different conversations, we'll have to have a translator. So we're very fortunate that like in our team here, we have like Zacarias and Lauro. They speak really good Spanish. And so they're super, super helpful for us to be able to communicate with the rest of the team and the community that we work with, because also people will come by and they only speak Quechua and we're like, yes. And no, so it's very helpful to have that, and it's such a beautiful thing to understand different ways to communicate with each other. So a lot of times like Spanish can be understood, but trying to learn and speak you know, because it's also my second language, obviously, you know, so learning to speak like in a very simple Spanish, and simple ways, like more, you know, more animated ways of trying to communicate with each other. But we really, I love this challenge. And also like when we have like community meetings, so we'll have meetings like every month or every other month, in which we'll gather all of the families from the network that we of farmers that we work with. And so like over 100 or sometimes 200 people, and we'll have the entire thing translated back and forth from Spanish to Kikchi. It's like an open conversation, and Zachariah and Laura, who work with us, are huge help supporters. And I think right now we're trying to like discover like who else really speaks Spanish, so that we can start to have like more open conversations. And also like, well, Carlos and I, and we're hopefully going to learn Kekchi soon too.
Amazing.
We pick it up little bits here and there, but maybe classes are definitely on the board.
Awesome. You can add that to your list of offerings eventually.
Yeah.
So then,
sure.
with the gathering, the monthly gatherings, how ceremonial are those spaces? And this is leading me into another question, just to speak about the community and ceremonies, and how integrated is the ceremonial aspect, and possibly even just touching on the difference to how we conceptualize a ceremony in the West compared to how it actually is in the living culture there still.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's also like a super interesting topic here in Guatemala, like the spirituality aspect. The um, how we work with it here in Tuqtuquilal. We do hold like ceremonies, like Mayan ceremonies, and we've done that now a couple times in very like special occasions, when we're starting the harvest, or to give thanks at the end of the year. We've held ceremonies in which we bring in the whole community, and we gather around our altar space here that we have at the center. And everybody, or people that are willing to, they will bring an offering. We'll have a fire, and then people that manage the fire, while we say, while we give thanks and ask for permission. You know, I think ceremony, I've seen it now in so many different ways. But for the most part, the people, while they are Mayan, so Catholic or evangelical, and different forms of the religion. So it's in Guatemala, it's this very interesting syncretism, I think is what it's called in English. Is where it's essentially Guatemala was colonized not by force in most areas, especially in this area, but it was colonized by the church. And so through a survival techniques, it sort of got this blend of the spirituality of the Mayan spirituality with the church. And so people here are very religious as far as like coming through Catholicism. And so there's this interesting mixture because people still, they burn copal. They have which is the sacred resin that comes from the trees of this region. And the people work with the copal and they burn it as like an offering. Also, a lot of times the cacao is used as an offering as well, to give thanks. And obviously the culture is very much built around corn as their survival, and their culture and who they are is built around corn. So so the ceremony that we hold, like in the group gatherings, we do generally start the meetings or start gatherings with burning copal. As that's sort of the tradition as well. If you go into somebody's home or you're going into somebody's space, generally there's generally an altar space, but also the copal is being burned. Yeah. So the copal is a great cleanser, and that really brings in the space. And also every Monday, for example, with our team here at Tuqtuquilal, we begin the week with a small altar space, our own kind of ceremony where we bring either candles or copal to be able to share together this moment of thank you that we're here and permission to do the work that we need to do for the week. Because we're oftentimes working with the land. For example, this week we're hopefully going to be planting the cornfield, the milpa here. And so we're asking permission. And then it's also a mix because we also open it up to our local team to lead us in a prayer, and which is generally, it comes from the church, but it is like, it's a meaningful like space in which we ask for health for everybody. We ask for, we ask for permission, and we sort of set off our week in that light. So it's this interesting mix, and there are people that do ceremonies, like full like Mayan ceremonies, but I'd say like majority of the culture here, the Kekchi culture is this mix of like Catholic and the syncretism of Catholicism and Mayan spirituality.
Wonderful. Yeah, thanks for giving the context there. I know there's a discussion you and I are going to have in another space just about romanticizing indigenous cultures, and this is definitely a topic we can flesh out. So thank you just for giving the context to that. And then regarding the ceremonies, the community ceremonies that happen with all the families that you work with, the network of families, does the whole family come or just one representative? How does that, who's welcome to that
Usually
space?
Yeah, it's the whole family is welcome. We work with 65 different families, and for the most part, when we have a large gathering, like our last gathering, I would say majority of the men also arrived, and mostly it was women. I'd say majority is women, and then probably about half of the families, a male representative was there at least. And then a lot of children. So generally we like have a space where we can have activities for the children if it's like a conversation that we kind of need more focus. But for the most part, the women will always come if they're coming for the community gathering, or they're coming for like working to toast and peel the cacao. They'll always bring their children. And then it depends on the time of year whether or not like the male representatives will come. Because a lot of the men here tend to work outside of the community for several months out of the year. There's like this agriculture migration in which they'll go work in other parts to work the sugarcane or the palm oil for several months of the year, and then they'll be here for a few months of the year. So for the majority of the year, the women are running the households, and a lot of the men are out working in other areas.
So is it when it's cacao or harvest time that the men are back? Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. So talk me through the process, just for anybody listening that doesn't yet know, from the fruit now being ready for the picking on the cacao trees, from these farms that are pretty spread out in the valley, right the way to coming to Tuqtuquilal, and the process then through right the way until paste. Can you talk us through how it actually works there with you?
I can totally do that. Yeah. So with the 65 families that we work with, they have their own fields, their own cacao farms, like biodiverse agroforestry systems that are right around their houses, throughout the mountains and the valley and where we live. And so the families themselves, and generally it's like with parent and child and all the generations usually out there to harvest the cacao from the trees. We set a date for what is the date of the purchase of cacao. And so generally we do that about every 2 weeks during the season. So we have the date, and the night before they'll harvest from the trees, and very early morning of the day of the purchase, they'll open the pods. So the cacao comes in a pod, they'll open the pods, and they pour everything that's in the pod with the fruit and the juice and the seeds into a plastic bag that we provide, and then they carry it, generally actually long distances. They carry all the cacao that they have from their fields to the purchase point, which is in the community. So it's like on the highway, so that we can have a truck that comes and picks it up. But we do, in the purchase day, it's actually like a bit of a celebration. We gather with all of the families. We weigh their cacao. We do like a double check on quality, but generally for the most part, everybody's on board with beautiful quality and good cacao, keeping up with our agreements. Then we pay them directly by pound for what they turn in. So that includes all of the juices and the fruit that's around the cacao, and a fair price for the families directly. And then from there, we take the cacao, and generally we ask for extra support that day for the men to also help us carry it from. We drive it about 15 minutes from where the communities are to where our center is here at Tuqtuquilal. They carry it up our little hill to where our fermentation boxes are. And we have a total of 9 fermentation boxes, but 3 sets in which we work, and we can hold up to 60 tons, I believe it is, or 6 tons of cacao with the fruit juices. And the boxes themselves have holes in it. So the holes in the bottom of the first box of cacao is covered. The box itself is covered on the inside with banana leaves, and then the juice. Once we pour all of the cacao with the fruit and the juice into these boxes and the banana leaves, it just is raining down juice of the fruit of the cacao. So it's literally like raining from the box, and we collect as much juice as we can. So from the juice, within the first few hours, we're able to collect it, and then we process it to be able to drink the juice. It's so good, and turn it into different forms that we do. And then from there, it stays in fermentation, the cacao with the fruit around the beans. And that process for the first 2 days is anaerobic, so it stays closed in the banana leaves. And then we move it to the different boxes and do a process of fermentation, in which it's about somewhere between 7 days to 13 days, depending on the weather and the different factors that need to go into it, while we do testing throughout to make sure it's finished its fermentation process. And then we pass it to the drying house, and which is just big open tables and greenhouse, closed-in greenhouse, so that it dries. And generally that takes about 7 days. And during those 7 days, it gets moved, and so that it gets a constant drying on all sides, a consistent drying. And then usually that takes about a week, or maybe a little over, again, depending on the climate. And then we have cacao beans to then store and work with. And then what we do is throughout the year, we call in the groups of women of the same 65 families. We have 5 different groups that we rotate, 5 groups of 13 women each. And those groups we rotate to be able to process the cacao. So they come in one group at a time of 13 women will come in. We pay them for the day of their work, and they come in and toast the cacao over the comal, which is a large clay dish over fire, which is a very traditional cultural way. Like every woman, every Mayan family in all of Guatemala will cook over a comal, at least their tortillas in different areas. But the comal is like it's a staple of the kitchen over the fire in the Mayan household. And so the comal here as well is cacao and chilies. But yeah, so the traditional way to process the cacao here in this region is over the comal. And so the comal is toasted, and then the women peel by hand the husk of the cacao.
I hear that. Yeah, I can hear it. Okay.
Okay, cool. And so yeah, so the women, they come and they toast and they peel the cacao, and then we have the beans that are nicely toasted, and then we take them to a grinder. It's actually like a basic corn grinder that we grind all of the cacao into, that becomes a paste. And in the paste, we put that into like beautiful molds that we have, and that's how we mold the blocks of the cacao that are sent all over the world.
And it is some of the best cacao, because it just holds such amazing energy from that area, from the land, and from the communities. Every step of that process is done with presence, with love, manually by hand, and this is just so different to the large scale commercial industries. And what I love about it as well is all the revenue stays in the communities. Not one of these parts of the process happen elsewhere, right the way until the paste, and obviously then it's sold on. So that's also just something that's becoming more and more important, I think, to be able to label something ceremonial grade. But that, again, is another conversation for another day. Thank you, Robin. Yeah, and just having been there myself, just taking me right back to drinking that cacao juice with you in the morning. And it was so hot when I was there. It was just before the rains came, and there was a drought as well. And just coming back after visiting the farms and having that cold cacao juice, it was just some of the most beautiful nectar that there is. I would say it's even better, or at least on par, with actual cacao, the warm cacao drink that we make from the paste with the water, chopping it and stirring it. But sure, it is delicious. So taking me down memory lane. So I want to know from you now, what is your favorite way to make cacao and then to enjoy drinking it? Like, do you have a place or ritual, but the actual making of it as well? What's your favorite way to work with cacao at the moment?
Nice. I love to have my little ritual to make when I'm making cacao for myself. I start with boil the water, and then I'm actually starting to do the way that Fran showed me when she was here. So mixing it in like a little pot over the stove with the cacao, and then I'll mix in just like a small bit of panela, which is like raw sugar cane. I mix in also just like a pinch of salt. I really actually like turmeric and ginger. They're like two of the spices that we use here. And yeah, I think turmeric's like an amazing medicine, and actually it goes really well with cacao. It changes the flavor, but it's like I really like the like earthiness of that. So that's like been my recipe of like I mixed it over a little bit of the fire, and mix the cacao with like the wooden molinos.
Molino, yeah.
Molina. Molinos, yeah. And I also have like this little like amazing like little blender thing. Sometimes I cheat and I use that to make it like really really creamy. And then and yeah, I just take a moment like my morning routine is just like have a little moment, a little intention. Now that I'm back at the project and we have volunteers here, we start some of our mornings with like a little cacao circle where we'll just like, okay, take a breath, take a moment, come ground ourselves in the same space, and just like to be able to start like our meeting, our little like, what are we doing today? What are we doing this week? Just kind of in that way of like, okay, let's just like bring ourselves all into the same space and share cacao together. That's been like a really nice little ritual as well.
Amazing. It is. It's the best to bring everybody together into the same space and the same heart space. It's amazing to start your workday like that. Awesome, awesome, awesome.
Yeah.
And then I want to hear the two sides of the coin, just the final little bit here. So when you're not, when you're at Tuqtuquilal, which as I've seen is very rural, there's not a lot of convenience, amenities just around the corner. So you're very much living out in the sticks, as we say. What do you miss when you are there? And then on the flip of that, when you haven't been at Tuqtuquilal for some time, what do you miss about being in the rural areas and being on the land?
Oh, that's a beautiful reflection. Thank you. Because I do really feel those both things. You know, I really like I want to try and enjoy it while I'm here, and also there's things that I miss about being elsewhere. Yeah, well, when I'm here at Tuqtuquilal, I think the things that I miss most are um, yeah, honestly, yeah, the human convenience of different foods. There's like some really good food, like having more of a diversity of food from here. Like when something I miss about the States mostly is like having really good seafood. I really miss seafood. Things from the ocean. But yeah, into Tuqtuquilal, no, I really miss also like I do feel sometimes like a bit separated from community for sure. That's like one of the hardest parts about being here is being separated from community. I love the community that we're creating here, and I'm so grateful as well. But I do have people elsewhere, and it's a long road to get out here. So yeah, I think those are really the things I miss when I'm here at Tuqtuquilal. And when I'm not here at Tuqtuquilal, I've been noticing more and more how much I just want to be in nature. I just want to be in nature. I want to be able to, be able to gather my food and fruits from the neighbors that come and come and deliver it, or that we're able to gather ourselves. I miss like that connection with nature, that connection full. Have it's just a very like authentic and humble relationship that I feel like we've cultivated with the community, and it's yeah, it feels like we've also really built a community here, and those relationships are really special. But mainly, I love just being here in nature. Yeah, and when I go to the lake and elsewhere, I'm still in nature, but it feels a bit removed as well.
Yeah. I get that. Yeah. I mean, thank you. We've chatted so much about specifically cacao and the workings of Tuqtuquilal and just the whole process that happens there. That's very hands-on and manual, and also just delicious things, cacao juice, and how you work with your cacao at the moment personally, but also to bring in the volunteers and the community aspect, the team there, the families. And it all sounds very positive, but I know that there are also challenges within this. And just a final question, bringing it right back to the context of cacao in Guatemala, Guatemala being affected like the rest of the globe with climate change and obviously socioeconomic political challenges that also go all over the world at the moment. So, what are some of the challenges that you foresee in the next few years with the not only the cacao space there, but also just the overall business of Tuqtuquilal?
Hmm. Yeah, um, and Tuqtuquilal has had a long journey kind of in its evolution, has grown with the challenges in a
Mm,
way, because it actually started out as a regenerative farm and
mm,
focusing more on the tourism aspect. And then when COVID happened, which was like a big challenge, obviously, for everybody around the world, um, the tourism stopped, and that was a huge challenge, not just here, but around Guatemala. But that was like a big change in the economy for Guatemala and Tuqtuquilal. And then, but that's when, in permaculture, we talk about like the challenges being opportunities.
mm,
And so the opportunity that came around with that was more about, was when they started to connect with the families here and learn more about the cacao and started working with the cacao with the families. And that was a really beautiful thing that opened up as well, this opportunity to work with the cacao. Now is the time where we're starting to integrate those two
mm,
together,
mm,
because for me, I really see like the such a solution, for climate change, for the changing times that we're going through, for this globalization
mm,
that's happening, for trying to create new systems in this world as well, is really about, um, diversifying,
mm,
biodiversity,
mm,
diversity in culture, diversity in what we plant and what we, trying to also connect directly um, to the source of what we're consuming,
mm,
to be more conscious of our consumption. So, like, I think that's what's really beautiful for me about this, like, ceremonial cacao, is like, it's not really about the ceremony itself,
yeah,
but it's about people connecting to its source,
yeah,
for people connecting to where it comes
mm,
from, and people being curious about that. And I
mm,
think
mm,
that
mm,
translates not just to the cacao, which is so beautiful, and absolutely we should be more, try to be as, as um as curious as we can, to be able to understand where it comes from and just feel into if that feels right for us. I don't think there's anything that's, there's no definition to be like, this is it and
mm,
this is what you
mm,
must do.
mm,
It's
mm,
just
mm.
like understanding where it comes from,
Beautiful.
being more connected. So I think that space of trying to connect, um, and then, on another level, on the agricultural level, right? To have diversity, to have biodiversity is so important, because we saw this year with such challenges, like we had a large drought that was here,
Mm,
and forest fires.
mm,
And it was extremely difficult year, and this was a very much a sign of, the times are changing, the climate is changing, and while people have known a certain type of agriculture, the families here still holds this biodiverse, um, systems that their cacao is in. So the ones that had, agroforestry
mm,
systems, where there was shades, enough shade, when there was enough, diversity of
mm,
plants around it,
mm,
and it wasn't, let's say, it wasn't just cacao, or it wasn't just cardamom.
mm,
um,
mm.
those were the ones that survived,
Yeah.
and which we'll start seeing now that the harvest is coming around again. But the ones that had difficulties, the ones that were in direct sunlight, that didn't
Mm,
have
mm,
enough shade,
mm,
that didn't have water available, those were the ones that died, and a lot of, so just looking at that piece, it's only more and more reason why we need more
mm,
biodiversity in all kinds of farming, why we need more diversity as far as ways of working as well, like more adaptability and how we work. So trying to find ways. Now we live in this region, it usually rains like 10 months of the year. Why would the farmers here need to know about rainwater collection? Why would the people here need to know about like storing rainwater in their soil when it comes here in overabundance, you know? But now the questions are coming about like, okay, what do we do when we don't have water available, you know, or like it's in the middle of our season, or maybe we need to change the seasons of when we plant. And so those things are still unknown because it's happening now and it's happening so quickly. But I think that in the the injection, like the input of different techniques of farming, of this new technology, but appropriate technology, to be able to so that we can share resources, share knowledge about how we can have better agriculture, this connection through technology to be able to connect people, connect us in a way where we're respectful through different cultures. You know, I think that's what's coming around as well with this ceremonial cacao. You know, how can we be respectful of the culture in which it comes from?
Yeah.
Where it comes from, the origins of which it comes from, how it's been used, you know, while we may use it differently. And I think that's like we can respect the way that each one of us wants to use the cacao, but also with this like reverence and respect for the culture in which it comes from.
And that's pretty much,
so I think that's kind of
the mission statement. You know, you just explained it so beautiful, but the mission statement of Tuqtuquilal, which means harmony and just that connection of everything, people to each other, people to land, just the appreciation of where things come from. And I just love how you just put it so from such a different perspective, that the ceremonial cacao space at the moment and cacao ceremonies in our neo culture, it's not so much about the ceremony, but about the actual cacao and learning about that, because that's a ceremony in itself, the appreciation, the respect, coming to receive the medicine of Mother Nature with reverence and understanding that there's a whole process involved and that things can still be kept like this, that in our modern age with so many chemicals and technology and everything, all the machines making everything faster and quicker, that there's still practices in place. There's still, that's living in the culture where it's done by hand, where it gives us medicine. And this is not only in the cacao space, but this is definitely our common bridge here into these conversations. So yes, I fully have always supported, since I knew about Tuqtuquilal, fully supported all the work that you do there, and the communities, because it's just, there's so much that we can learn. So with all the challenges that have been and that are still to come, I like that reframing as well. Thank you, Robin, of their opportunities, because there's an opportunity to learn from each other, to change, to be a bit more diverse, be open-minded, connect back to the source. So thank you, sister. I just want to check if there's any final words you would like to share, anything else that's on your heart before we close off.
Yeah, I really just like want to reaffirm what you were just saying too, which is just like, you know, I think that the energy that goes into the cacao and everything that we consume, all that we eat, you know, it does come from the work that's being put into it, you know, the hands that are being put into it. So I think this change in times and this intention and the ceremonial aspect, it's all about the intention that's put into it, that goes into the creation, that goes into, you know, all of the hard work that goes into, you know, coming from the cacao, from the harvest by hand, in family, you know, to be carried down the mountain, you know, sometimes for a half hour, an hour walk to where it needs to go. And then, you know, all the process that it goes through. Cacao is just like this beautiful teacher of exactly that, of how we can connect with Mother Earth, and how we can also connect with each other and really respect that, like the energy that we're receiving, to feel that energy that we're receiving is coming from all the hard work that's been put into it by the people. And I think the Mayan culture really exemplifies like artistry in hard work, you know. And I think like as like sort of Western cultures, I think like coming back into that space of like, okay, like hard work is worth it because it's the energy that we're putting into it, you know, like coming back into that space of like, that's what we're creating. And that's I think that spiritual aspect that maybe we're disconnected from, you know. And to be able to give that respect and I say like revalorization, like revaluing, really showing the people that are coming from these cultures, that carry these cultures, just sharing with them how much value their culture has. And I think that's really beautiful. So
Thank you. So anybody that is thinking of traveling to Guatemala or is already there, if you haven't yet been to Tuqtuquilal, give yourself the opportunity and the time to spend a few days there, because there's also the ecotourism aspect. Obviously, we haven't touched on that. We're just chatting about cacao at the moment, but you can go and meet Robin in person, and you can go and see how things work at Tuqtuquilal, and whatever part of the process the cacao is in, you'll get an opportunity to see all of that and make your own cacao, and just be part of the beautiful land there. But you can also just get cacao, so and the other beautiful products on their website. And if you're in South Africa, you can get the ceremonial-grade cacao from Tuqtuquilal, as well as the cacao husk tea on our web shop. And then anybody that would like to join a pilgrimage in the next couple of years, Robin and I are still discussing that. So there's lots of opportunities to get involved, either directly with Tuqtuquilal or through us at Cape Cacao. So thank you so much, sister. I just want to close off with saying thank you and just so much gratitude for you. This is my closing, so a hand on my heart. And just thank you for the message that you are sharing with the world and the support that you give the community, so that they can also empower themselves more and more to realize the magic that they have, and how it's being so well received by us that don't have the opportunity to be working with cacao, to be working directly with the land. So thank you from my heart to yours.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. Very much appreciate it, and appreciate all of you out there listening. Thank you so much. Gracias,
Not Dios. Not Dios. Mwah. Have a beautiful day further. Goodbye, everybody.
Great.
Bye.